Okay, now I want to turn to one of my favorite games of sort. And the game is, what if Barack Obama did that? Because today we learned that Trump's Justice Department has agreed to pay Trump's former national security advisor $1.25 million. Flynn, remember, sued the government, saying that he had been wrongfully prosecuted on charges of lying to federal investigators. Charges, I would note, that he himself pleaded guilty to. Now, not only did Trump see it right to pardon Mr. Flynn for his crimes, but now the Justice Department is giving him more than $1 million for, I guess, all of his suffering through this? I don't know. Now, just handing more than $1 million of your tax dollars to a former national security advisor as a settlement for a crime he did commit. He did commit. I would just remind you of that. Your tax dollars going to that. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Obama did that? Could you imagine the level of right-wing outrage? There would be flames coming out of their brains, their heads, visible. And that's not the only bonker statement settlement news we got today, because today, just days after Americans all across the country filed their taxes, Reuters reported that the IRS is in talks with Donald Trump to settle his $10 billion lawsuit against the agency. Yes, the IRS, as in an agency that is a part of the Treasury Department, an agency that he himself controls. So Trump is effectively in talks to settle a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit with himself using your tax dollars, your money. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the Fox News banners if Obama did that? I mean, I can. I really could imagine it. Then, of course, there is today's biggest news. Today, Axios reported that President Trump is considering releasing $20 billion in frozen Iranian assets as part of his deal to end the war with Iran. Now, I should note that MS Now has not independently verified that reporting, and President Trump himself denied it, or I should say he kind of sort of denied it. Trump called Axios' report totally false, while also including the phrase, "no money is changing hands." But considering how many banks all around the world currently hold Iranian assets that are frozen by U.S. sanctions and unavailable to Iran, and the many ways that some form of currency could be exchanged, well, there are a lot of holes in that denial, or a lot that I heard. Trump could give the Iranians billions without money changing hands at all, technically. And despite Trump's denial, over the course of the day, we have seen more and more outlets reporting the same thing. Sources tell them that Trump is going to give Iran access to $20 billion as part of a new nuclear deal to end the war. Again, could you imagine if President Obama, when he was president, had done something like that? Oh, wait, on that one, you don't exactly have to. Not exactly the same, but I'll get to that. Remember back in 2015, of course, President Obama and the leader of Iran, along with world leaders from China, France, Russia, Germany, the UK, and the EU, signed the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. Then in early 2016, in an unrelated transaction, the United States paid a decades-old legal settlement to Iran related to the purchase of military equipment back in the 1970s, before the revolution, which wasn't delivered because of the revolution, so it was never delivered. And in early January of that year, the first $400 million of that $1.7 billion settlement was paid on the same day that implementation of the Iran nuclear deal began, and also the same day of the release of 4 Americans who were being held in Iran. Believe me, it was a lot to explain at the time. But basically, the U.S. paid Iran money they were owed from weapons they were never delivered decades earlier. And the right wing went absolutely crazy.
Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities.
Barack Obama's sanctions relief, which they will use to build up their military and one day acquire a nuclear weapon of their own.
This money, we can't guarantee, isn't going to be used to fund terrorism and terrorists and won't hurt U.S. Citizens or U.S. soldiers.
Iran, the world's top state sponsor of terrorism, has been put on the path to nuclear weapons, was given $400 million in ransom payment cash.
Is that going to terror, or is that going to people's bank accounts? I actually think it's going to both.
What is wrong with this president? How dumb is he?
There's nothing Obama won't do to appease the Iranians.
It seems to make more sense to give a bottle of liquor and car keys to a Porsche to a 16-year-old boy than it would be to give $400 million to the Iranians.
Man, those didn't age well, did they? That was Trump's current Secretary of State, his transportation secretary today, his ambassador to Israel, and Trump himself, all jumping up and down, foaming at the mouth about the idea that the U.S. would give money to Iran. Of course, when Obama did it. And if you're thinking, well, that was all a decade ago, just take a listen to Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just last month.
Many of the Iranian military factories and bases that we're systematically destroying were paid for by the pallets of American cash that Barack Obama flew into Tehran under the Iran deal.
That was Pete Hegseth sitting next to Donald Trump less than a month ago, attacking Obama. Now, hypocrisy on that point aside, it's still very unclear how close we are to an actual deal. Trump has said that more negotiations could take place this weekend in Pakistan. He's even said he might personally attend those negotiations. But he's also said if no deal is reached by Tuesday, when the current ceasefire expires, there won't be an extension. Fighting will resume. As for the situation on the ground at this moment, it's equally a little confusing. I mean, yesterday, President Trump announced a 10-day ceasefire between the countries of Israel and Lebanon, a truce that is precarious for many reasons, chief among them the fact that Hezbollah, the militant group that is actually fighting Israel, wasn't part of those negotiations. And then early this morning, Reuters reported that an Israeli drone strike killed someone in southern Lebanon today, potentially violating what was already a very fragile ceasefire. Also a bit confusing about the situation on the ground, or at sea level, I guess you could say, is in the Strait of Hormuz. Today, Iran's foreign minister declared the strait completely open for the duration of the ceasefire, while Trump declared the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports to still be in full force. So far, it doesn't seem that ships in the region know exactly what that means for them. I mean, Reuters reports that tonight around 20 ships sailed towards the strait, but then stopped, some turning back. Norway's Ship Owners Association told Reuters that, quote, key issues remained unresolved, including the presence of mines, Iranian conditions, and how the measures would be implemented in practice. You don't say. It's a lot of issues, by the way. As much as Trump seems to be already trying to take a victory lap here, a lot of key issues still seem unresolved. Now, in a phone call with Bloomberg reporter Kate Sullivan today, Trump said that he had not decided whether he wanted his vice president, J.D. Vance, to lead this next round of in-person Iran talks. But there were two people Trump was sure he did want there, Steve and Jared, his boys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, that is, his real estate buddy, and, of course, his son-in-law. And, you know, while we're talking about money in the Middle East and how Trump appears to have no problem doing exactly what he was so mad at Obama for doing a decade ago, you know what is something that Obama also never did? He never sent a negotiating team with literally billions of dollars of conflicts of interest to negotiate with Iran.